All right, what's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. Here with Matt Money Smith, who is back from his Hawaiian vacation. Money, a lot of talk about the birds chirping. You up early, getting that surf in. How was the trip?
Incredible. As you're going to learn, Chris, you're about to go to Hawaii yourself. It's the best. The fact that we live here in Southern California precluded me from going to Hawaii for a while. All our vacations were to not beach destinations. I was like, we got the beach right here. Why am I going to the beach? And then finally the wife managed to convince me, just go once. And I'm good going to Hawaii every single year now. The aloha, just the vibe, you can dial it back from, 10 to 5. And that's the level everyone's operating on and of course, because I like to surf, the waves were freaking incredible. We ended up getting a big swell there in the Waikiki area, so ended up catching some tasty waves, brah. But
it's like the best place in the world to surf, right?
It's one of them, especially it all depends on the swell. You either get lucky or you don't. The first 2 days I was there were, not to bore everybody, I'll get through this quick. There were not very big waves, but the last 4 days we were there, the swell came and yeah, I got some freaking big ones. So it was a lot of fun, and cannot recommend it enough for all those that maybe have that mindset that I did for a while of why am I leaving the beach to go to the beach? It's a different beach and it's a different vibe, and it's the best. The only thing that sucks is leaving, because you're going back to the rat race, and just kind of the way we operate here so differently than the way they operate there.
Well, I will try to replicate. I'll wear a tank top. I'll get up at 5:30 a.m. Thursday. I don't know if I'll get in the water and surf because I'm not on that level, but
and you got no waves. You're going, see, that's the difference. You're going to a spot where there's no waves in the summer in Maui. So Maui's a winter wave. So you have no, you're going to snorkel though. You're going to grab your mask and your snorkel, and you're going to see some pretty sweet. I'm going to have you snorkel there at Napili and report back and see some sweet things there.
All right. Can't wait. And, it's the off season, so guys are on vacation and there's not a ton to talk about in terms of new news. So I thought it'd be a perfect episode for a mailbag. And we had some great questions coming in yesterday that pouring in this morning. And let's just get right into them, Money. And we'll start with one that we've talked about a lot. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on this one, but this is from Eric. Curious to hear thoughts on the right tackle spot and who will win the job. And I think the last couple of weeks we've been talking pretty high about Trey Pipkins and the fact that Storm Norton's there too, and the coaches have a lot of trust. I don't know if it's between any of the guys other than those two.
Well, I think it goes back to what we've talked about repeatedly, and that's that we speculated, that they would sign someone, that someone would get cut or someone would get healthy, one of these vets, and not the case. So it's going to be Trey or Storm. I believe that. I don't know if unless the one other wrinkle is if a guard raises his hand and Filer kicks out to right tackle. If someone's performing really well at one of the interior spots and they feel a lot more comfortable putting that particular player between Slater and Lindsley, and that way having, the rookie Zion between Filer and Lindsley like they did with Slater next to Filer, just to kind of help ease that transition to the NFL. So that's the only path I see to it not being Trey or Storm. And if I were to put odds on it, I would say Trey is probably the favorite, just because I feel like they know what Storm has to offer. And I think they view Storm as a real good backup. If we're in a pinch, we feel good about Storm being able to come in and give us a half or a game or something like that. But I'm not sure they want to operate like they did last year, where he's your starting right tackle, from the go.
Yeah, I think two scenarios there. The first is what you said. If a guard shows up and says, hey, I can do this, and they believe in having one of these guys be a starting caliber left guard and you kick Filer out, or if the right tackle play during training camp and preseason is just not what they expected, maybe then you also kick Filer out. But I would bet on Trey and Storm. Popper wrote about Trey in The Athletic last week, so if you want more insight on his offseason, check that out. So yeah, right tackle, man, that has been a topic of conversation among the fans more so than I think almost any question, Money.
I mean, what else is there? It really is the one. And I think it's also because it's the last thing we remember. We remember Max Crosby wrecking shop and just, and that's kind of what we keep talking about. You can't you don't have to be elite, but you can't be a liability. And I think, unfortunately for Storm in that game, they found it, they attacked it relentlessly, and the Raiders succeeded every time they attacked it. And it really made for a long evening that Herbert was able to overcome despite the amount of pressure he was under from that side of the line. So yeah, it's the biggest question. And I think it's one that's going to certainly have its attention on it all training camp long. And look, this, like the thing with Trey, just to wrap it up, you want to talk about a coaching staff and a front office, being able to kind of shake hands and feel good together. Yeah, that's a big swing, a 3rd round pick on a guy that you knew was going to be a pro. I think that's what Trey was, right? He was a 3rd, or was he a 4th? I think he was a 3rd. Yeah, so that's an investment in a guy from Sioux Falls State that played at that level of competition. They're like, you know what? Our evaluators believe in the traits. We think we can get him going. So to have a coaching staff come in and develop what the front office saw and what their vision was, that goes a long way, and having a team work together, front office and coaching staff, and really have them mirror one another when it comes to what they believe in.
Quick story. I remember interviewing Trey the next day after he was drafted, and he told me his draft story. He was in the car on his way to a restaurant with his family. He thought that he wasn't getting drafted that day in the 3rd round. So he gets the call. Usually families are in front of the television and they're waiting for that big moment. He was out to dinner. So it shows you what he thought about maybe going in the 3rd round. It was probably a surprise to him. So you flash forward now, again, we talked to the last 2 weeks. He looks like a different guy. We'll see if that translates to the field come training camp. This next question, Money, from Jesse. Are the Bolts done adding free agents? Are you comfy heading into the season with these linemen and linebackers? It feels like the front office has addressed everything but 1 or 2 spots. Why start off the year with a glaring Achilles heel? So I don't view it that way. I think that they feel like this is the team going in, and they've made this a more complete team. They brought in guys at the linebacker position that Brandon Staley's comfortable with. They address both lines in my estimation. When you bring in Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson, I think that there are some big names out there that may have been bigger impact players in like 2014, 2015. But I don't think there's anybody that they're counting on to come into camp and make a difference, save for maybe if there's an injury.
I guess that I don't get the linebacker part of that. You got Khalil Mack. He's, essentially a linebacker. He was coached by the linebackers coach in Chicago, who was Brandon Staley. So the way this defense is set up, he's an edge. Kyle Van Noy is an edge. There's 2 linebackers. And then you get Troy Reeder, who was in the system and was successful with the Rams. And then we think about last year, when Amon had his opportunity, he performed. Nick Neiman's a linebacker. He's one of the best special teams players, if not the best special teams player on the team. And when he got his opportunity, he shined. And then you got Drew Tranquill and Kenneth Murray. So I don't quite know who's out there at linebacker that they're talking about, and they would think could come in. Like, I'm worried that one of those guys is going to have to try to fly through on the practice squad and isn't going to make it. When you talk about lining up Murray, Neiman, Amon, Troy, Tranquill, 5 guys at the, at kind of that inside linebacker spot that doesn't, it doesn't get a lot.
I'm comfortable with the linebackers.
One linebacker. They play a lot of one inside linebacker and a bunch of edge. So that's like, I don't understand that. And what was the other one? It was linebacker and O-line or D-line?
It said lineman. So, it doesn't matter.
They addressed the D-line. They got Morgan Fox just recently. So that's your 3rd behind
Bring
Johnson.
Back Covington.
And Bobby Cummins. Yeah, look, someone's going to get cut on that.
Yeah.
Like that, when we talk about making the 53, like someone's not going to be around, or someone's going to be they're going to try to get them through on the practice squad. You got Fox, Fehoko, Covington, Andrew Brown, who they signed off the Rams practice squad, Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson. We loved the way Forrest Merrill looked in preseason, and the penetration he can getting upfield. They draft Tito. There's Tillery, who didn't get his first. So like that, I don't know. I appreciate the question. I just don't quite get it. And I think we already addressed the O-line. And remember, they picked up Will Clapp. So, that's 9. That's 9 guys. When you go with the starting 5, and then you add, let's just say the starting 5 is Pipkins. Then you add Norton 6, Sawyer, who they, drafted and probably believe in 7, Hymas 8, Clapp 9. And there's your 9 linemen. So I don't quite know what's out there.
I looked at the remaining free agents in Rosenthal's top 100 just to kind of see
who's out there.
If there was an injury, let's say if there's an injury to right tackle, you got Dwayne Brown, Eric Fisher, Riley Reef. Those are like 3 dudes that,
and Reef's the only right tackle. Dwayne Brown's been a left his whole life. Fisher's been a left his whole life. I know people think it's easy. It's not. It's not. When you're 37 years old and you're Dwayne Brown, it's all of us, hey, get on the right side. That's tough go. So that's not ideal. Now, Reef, if he's healthy, but he wasn't that great in Cincinnati and got hurt. So, and
again, these are names like Ndamukong Suh, like in 2014, sign me up. Julio Jones in 2012, sign me up. But I think those guys are out there for a reason. They probably don't want to go to training camp, A, and B, they're looking to sign with the contender, which the Chargers are a contender, but I don't know. I can see Julio Jones catching balls from Matt Ryan in Indianapolis and Sue going to a variety of places.
And look, I mean, if it's a flyer, like last year when he was made available, I had hoped the Chargers would take a flyer on Odell because, I mean, look,
he's out there too. I didn't put him on here because
but he's injured. I mean, he's going to miss most of the season. You know what I mean? But I think the Rams showed, we'll take a flyer on the guy because it's a flyer. And if it doesn't work, then you cut him and it's no big deal. So I get that part of it. If you want to take a flyer on Julio or something like that, okay. But if you don't, I think it comes down to if you're Tom and his staff and Brandon and his staff, and you don't think they're going to beat out the guys that have been in your system for a year now, then there's no reason to bring him in and give him valuable reps that you'd rather give to the other guys that you feel better about.
Yeah. All right. This next question, actually 2 people asked this in different ways, so we'll just try to tackle it in one.
Okay.
Our guy Gabe, who's your pick for Chargers breakout star of the season? And remember, last week we did 5 players that we think are essential to the team. Maybe not necessarily breakout stars, but guys who we think need to have good seasons. And then which Chargers player do you believe will have the biggest breakout season, which is open to interpretation in 2022? Not necessarily who needs to, but who do you see actually doing it? That's from our guy Dan. So the name that came to me was Nas Adderley because I think the main reason Terry McLaurin got his extension, they kept showing Scary Terry highlights in week 1.
Yeah,
that ridiculous catch he made that Nas should have
went through Nas's arms.
Yeah, that just kind of put the light bulb in my head that, man, if Nas hits on 4 or 5 of those this year, he could be that breakout star in the secondary that puts this defense over the hump.
Look, I don't know if this is what they're looking for, but this is my answer. It's going to be Khalil Mack. People are writing him off and they're like, kind of going to your point, Chris, with what you were saying about some of the guys that are out there about, hey, if it's 2016, okay, Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, last year when he was healthy, he was a wrecking machine. And he was wrecking so much shop that Robert Quinn at 34 ended up having a career year when he piled up all those sacks early. So I just don't think Chargers fans I think the national media is a little bit more understanding of the kind of impact that this move is going to have. The fact that Bosa, and it's one of the reasons why I don't like the PFF grades, because there's just so much that goes into every single snap when you have 11 pieces moving on a play that it's hard to grade an individual player because you don't know what's asked of them. You don't know what they faced. Who's on that same line with them that's drawing attention versus the attention that's being paid to them. Khalil, I'm going to just connect to those two. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are going to be a problem, a giant freaking problem for teams. We know the value that is placed on offensive linemen, how high they get drafted, how much money they get paid, the draft capital that is exchanged for them, and how few elite offensive linemen there are. Chargers have 2 elite defense. I believe Joey Bosa is the best all-around defensive end in the game. The best. No one is better at stopping the run and rushing the passer as a combined individual than Joey. And to have he and Khalil, and one of them is going to be one-on-one when the both of them are on the field, that's a problem. That, to me, that's your breakout player. Those 2 guys are going to be all pros this year. And it's going to be the main reason why as long as everyone stays healthy, this Charger team and this defense really excels.
You know who's going to benefit the most from those guys is Kyle Van Noy. I mean, he could have a career high in sacks potentially. Like, let's say like Khalil has 12 sacks, Joey has 10. I wouldn't be surprised if Van Noy had 8 or 9, right? Just because of the double teams.
And that's what he does. Like, that's why the Van Noy signing was so huge. Is this guy every single year, his floor is typically 5, and if he's put in great spots, you're talking about a guy that's, 5+ sacks. There's always a couple forced fumbles. He might get his hand on an interception. He's got a ton of tips. He's really smart at the line of scrimmage and knowing when to pull up from his rush and just get those arms up, because he recognizes he's not going to get to the quarterback. Absolutely. Chris Rumpf could end up with a 4 to 6 sack year. So like that's, to me, I just feel like that's not being paid enough attention to. There isn't enough attention being placed on what it means to have those two guys, if everything is right with Khalil Mack's foot when he's out there, come Sunday night and the Raiders are in, or Sunday afternoon and the Raiders are in LA.
Another guy, give me Isaiah Spiller on offense. I just think that guy's going to bring a dimension to the O, and we've talked about him.
Yeah, I hope. I think on offense, to me, it's Everett. I think we saw how often Justin Herbert wants to go to the tight end. He targeted Hunter Henry a lot, especially in the red zone. He targeted Jared Cook a lot, especially in the red zone. And to now have, an athlete, that's got a little bit more juice than Jared did last year there. And it seems like it's a name that keeps coming up. People are, hey, Jared, we got run after catch there now. We got some action. You think about what Joe Lombardi's done with tight ends, in New Orleans, obviously with Jimmy Graham, heading the list there. So I'm excited about Everett as well.
His numbers have gotten better every single season, and Herbert, by far, I think the best quarterback he's going to play with throughout the course of a 17 games.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, next question from our guy, Jimmy Pham. Any chance Brown and Marks knock off both Kelly and Roundtree in this running back battle? So if you don't know, Kevin Marks from Buffalo and Letty Brown from West Virginia, 2 undrafted guys. Jimmy, I wouldn't take it out of the realm of possibilities. It comes down to special teams. And, we don't know much about Kevin Marks and Letty Brown as pros, especially during OTAs and minicamp. We got to see the pads on in training camp and preseason. But listen, Marks had 33 touchdowns at Buffalo, Brown 27 at West Virginia, 4.7 yards a pop, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. So, I think with Roundtree and Kelly was drafted by the previous regime. Roundtree is going to have to show that he can excel on special teams. And then when he is given those opportunities in the game, that he can do something with them, especially because of the guy that we mentioned, Isaiah Spiller.
Yeah, I think the one thing that, people get excited about, and they should. It's a running back. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to run. You better be able to pass protect. That's what it's going to come down to. So I know the numbers aren't there for Roundtree and for Kelly, and you'd love to get more production out of them. A lot of that's a product of the offensive line. Certainly, it's not just them running the football, but it's what holes are being opened. But to me, it's pass pro. And Josh is good in pass pro. He does a pretty darn good job there. So you better be able to block, or else. They just, especially on third down, they can't afford to put you out there. So that's the key. But yeah, look, I mean, we've seen, year after year, Chris, right? We've seen running backs make it that are undrafted, Austin Eckler, Darius Bradwell, like running backs make this team that were undrafted. So I don't think it's a great question. And I'm not saying no, they can't. Absolutely, they could. But the one thing they're going to have to do beyond running the football is being able to block.
Yeah.
And play special teams.
Playing in that third phase. All right. This is from Big Red Bolts fan. This is a fun question. With how Staley's putting together the D, it isn't going to fit into any of the current named systems. Since it's a hybrid system and there are at least 5 players who will play up to 5 techniques, he's got a name for this one. The perfect name is the High HY-5 defense. The High 5 defense, Money. What are your thoughts on the High 5 defense?
Love it. I think the one thing that people, and this really kind of came into play when Wade and his 3-4 started kind of showing up, right? And started making some noise. And now our 4-3 and the Tampa 2 was being challenged by this 3-4 in Baltimore and 3-4 of Wade Phillips. And they're in subs so often. Like you are in sub packages 90% of the game as opposed to, 50% or so. So it's like, I understand what they're saying. It's, are they going to have 5 down linemen? Are they going to run 7 up front? Are they going to run 7 defensive backs now that they've got those 2 safeties with Derwin, who can act as that one linebacker, maybe if you want to go a little bit smaller because of how dynamic he is. Yeah, dude, I like the name. I love it. But I think almost every defense now is a hybrid defense, except for one guy. That's Gus Bradley. There was one guy out there that is going to do very, very little other than play single high, rush 4, rarely blitz. There's usually 3 linebackers. All right, maybe there's 2 and a nickel DB out there. Now we saw him be forced into having those six defensive backs because of injuries to Denzel and oh geez, help me out. Who am I forgetting? Who is our other linebacker? Jerron, help me out.
Jatavis Brown.
Jatavis Brown. There you go. Exactly. When those guys both went down and Adrian Phillips, who's really a safety, was playing linebacker. That's the only time that Gus has ever shifted from what he normally does and wants to do. So that's, unless Gus is your DC, you're doing a ton of sub packages and there's very little, hey, this is what this defense is.
Big Red Bolts fan, put a patent pending on high 5 defense and see if anybody takes it. All right. I was going through some of the replies last night. I think this is my favorite question, Money. This is from Daniel Kavanagh. If you were trapped on a deserted island with 3 current Chargers, name the 3 that would give you the best shot at survival and explain why.
Oh, man. All right. So let's see. 3. Let me see. I got one pops into my mind immediately. And to me, that's the easy one. And that's Braden Fehoko, because he's from the islands. So he's going to have working knowledge on how we're going to survive being a guy from the islands. So that's my number 1. Number 2, boy, oh boy, let's see. Derwin, I just think he would keep my spirits up. He's
on my team simply because of his enthusiasm, personality, and keeping everyone together.
I'm gonna feel like, okay, we got a chance to get off this thing. Derwin says so I'm gonna buy it. And 3, boy, now let me just go through the position group. So line, no, because they're gonna eat everything and they need to sustain. So you know what? So that's the thing. I'm gonna go Asante because I need someone that's my size, that's not going to consume too much food. So we can, we're probably going to have to live, our sustenance is going to have to allow both of us to live. So somebody who maybe wouldn't be able to really physically overpower me and just snatch, not saying he couldn't, of course he could, but you know what I'm saying? He's the only guy on the team that I'm bigger than, perhaps, or at least equal to in terms of size. So at least that way we could share a little bit of food and I might be able to survive this nightmare.
All right. So you got Fehoko, Derwin, and Asante. Derwin is the one commonality here because it's such a mental game. And I feel like I can't lose if Derwin's telling me we can't lose. Right. So Derwin's number 1 for me, just to kind of set the foundation. Number 2 is Justin Herbert, because I feel like I need another leader on the island. And he was president of the fishing club, right?
There you go.
In Oregon. So,
and I think he was biology, right? Wasn't he a biology major, academic All-American biology? Yes. So at least, maybe
there's help a lot there. You may get us some food. And the 3rd, Cole Christensen, a West Point real leader. I want a real leader there. So Cole, Derwin, and Justin versus Derwin, Fehoko, and Asante.
Yeah. Again, part of it's survival, man. Part of it's survival. You got 3 big dudes that are going to be eating all that food, and there might not be enough.
All right, this is the second half of Daniel's question, which is very different, but still a good one. Which player, past or present, would you like to most see return to the team as a coach?
Well, obviously, Phillip.
Yeah, it's like Phillip's like the no-brainer.
That's the no-brainer. He's a coach, and he's a coach on the field, and he's a football junkie. So yeah, that to me is an easy one.
Yeah, I'd say Phillip too. You know what? Adrian Phillips is one that I think would be a good coach down the line too,
but not close to Phil. I mean, no, and there aren't many players in the NFL that are close to Phil that you would rather have come back as like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of safe Peyton Manning, that's kind of off the top of my head. I cannot think of anybody, that's the level that Rivers was on, just seeing things, diagnosing things, knowing exactly what was going on the other side of the football. Yeah, that to me is an easy one.
Plus, as a member of the media, like that's the soundbite you want, right? You want 100%. Him at the podium every Thursday talking about everything that's going on, probably a 15, 20-minute presser.
Gosh, darn, dadgum.
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 All right, next one from Scott. What would Guyton and Palmer have to do this season to make the Chargers offense a true Super Bowl caliber O? The Jamar Chase added that extra oomph and helped Cincinnati get to the big game. Guyton and Palmer, in my opinion, must have a big impact. What do you think about that?
Well, it's not fair to put them in the category of Jamar Chase. Jamar is the Keenan Allen. Jamar is the Mike Williams.
Jamar's like a top 5 receiver.
Yeah. So you're talking about, can they be the T. Higgins, who's also incredible? Like that's your other Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I mean, look, I don't think that Super Bowl appearance or regular season success is going to be predicated on them having an exceptional year. I think honestly, you want me to know what you want me to tell you what I think they need to do? Catch the ball. Justin's going to find him.
Win one-on-one matchups.
Yeah. Catch the ball when Justin throws it to you, because he's going to put it in a great spot. And if you can catch it, then you'll be fine. That to me is pretty much what they have to do. And I think we definitely saw Josh Palmer do it. We saw Jalen Guyton do it most of the time. I think he's got a little bit further to go than Josh does. I feel better about Josh's hands than I do Guyton's right now. But of course, Guyton's got the speed. So, if he's able to take that next step, which plenty of people have done, I think about Tyrell Williams, right? Just kind of not Tyrell Williams. Why am I blanking on these names? Oregon State, our guy are out of, not Oregon State, out Tyrell. Of West. Wasn't it Tyrell?
Tyrell, yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking T. Billy for some reason, which is not who I'm talking about.
Tyrell in 2018.
Yeah, Tyrell Williams. Exactly. Who kind of came out of nowhere and just took that jump and became that deep threat. And his hands became a little bit more reliable. I remember he had that huge drop in the New England game that was a disaster. But yeah, that's it. Catch the ball, because they're going to win their matchups. Wide receivers, the way the rules are now, I'm not saying it's easy, but the rules favor the wide receivers to get open. The way that you can't put your hands, there's so many flags thrown for holding or pass interference. So just catch the ball. That's it.
Take full advantage of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Gerald Everett on the field at the same time as you, right? And I think that those
and Austin
guys,
Eckler.
I think a positive development last year. Palmer and Guyton caught touchdowns late in the year. I think they combined for like 6 touchdowns in December and January. So they were making plays late in the year. I think that's an indication that Palmer was really starting to get it and obviously get more playing time. And Guyton got in a groove there. I remember that Cincinnati game where he had a big game. I think he had that huge touchdown, maybe Justin's best throw ever, right? That was the Guyton against the Giants.
Against the Giants was the Guyton. Yeah. And look, Palmer called arguably the biggest touchdown of the year against the Raiders on 4th down, right? Wasn't that, I think that was Josh that caught that ball, if I remember right. So
21, right?
Yeah. So look, that's it. They're good, man. Catch the ball and all is well.
Next one from Trey. Can you do an update on where some of the developmental players are at? I know you've covered some, but we heard a lot about Brendan Hymus and Eamon last offseason. It's been quiet on them this time around. Money, I just think it's been quiet because there hasn't been much going on.
Yeah,
right?
They're not in pads. They're not
pads
really
yet. So, I mean, it's been quiet on both of those guys, but I don't think there's any reason to be discouraged. I think they're going to have a spotlight on them, certainly in training camp and throughout the preseason.
I think Hymus is interesting because they drafted Sawyer, and they signed Clapp. So I think that's an interesting one to keep an eye on for sure. They didn't really do much they didn't do anything, as a matter of fact, in terms of linebackers. So you feel pretty good about Neiman and Eamon coming back, into that linebacker room, especially with how well, each of them, I think, acquitted themselves when they were on the field. So I think they'll be fine in a year better. thinking in terms of
any other developmental guys that we haven't talked much about?
Well, I'm just trying to think of who, because
like McKitty, for instance. I think McKitty's going to take a leap this year.
Yeah, I think. Look, he's definitely going to get snaps. That's kind of the way I look at it. Like, are they going to get more or less snaps than last year? And I think in terms of Neiman, probably same. Amon, maybe a little bit more. If Kenneth is slow to recover from his surgery, you could see Amon out there a little bit more. So just trying to think of who developmental, those late round, because they didn't. I'm trying to think of what. I wish let me just go experience. Let me go here. My apologies for doing this while we're on. Let's see. Michael Bandy, Cole Christensen, DeLuca, French, Hunter, Camp Moyer. Yeah, look, I think Camp Moyer is going to have a shot, if they want to carry 4 tight ends, which they've done in the past. If, that spot between Horvath and Neighbors and, Camp Moyer and, one of these rookies, whether it's Stone Street or who's the kid from Indiana, Kromenick, I think that's a battle to keep an eye on. They're not as Forrest Merrill, I think is we talked about him a second ago with all the signings. I think maybe he is someone who could take a little bit of a step back because, they needed him last year. This year,
I look at Fehoko as a developmental guy still.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good one to bring up too. Yeah, Fehoko, even though he's going to be in year 3, I think you're talking about full practice squad 2 years ago, got into the rotation a little bit last year because of just, the inability of the starters to slow the run down. So that'll be an interesting one, with bringing in those 3 new players on the defensive interior line. Is Fehoko going to be able to get as many or more snaps this year for sure?
Yeah. And, having that full off season, knowing what to expect in this Staley system.
Yeah.
Next one from Alistair. It's early, but in your opinion, will a rookie undrafted free agent make the final 53? It's seemingly every year an undrafted guy makes the 53. I don't know where it's going to come from this year. I think the running back argument that we talked about earlier is certainly something to maybe look at, but
they drafted Spiller, and that's a good one though. I mean, I think, boy, oh boy, because see, like, to me, are they going to carry 4 running backs? Probably. They did last year, right? So, and a fullback. They carried 4 and a fullback and a hybrid in Steven Anderson. So that's a good one. It's
going to be harder this year. It's going to be harder this year for undrafted to make it.
I think so. I'm looking at it now. And like, if I had to, I don't think any of the undrafted O-linemen are going to make it because we got 9. We went through that when we were talking about Trey, with the signing of Clapp, they got those 9 guys. So I don't think there's room there. It's not going to be a linebacker. I don't think, maybe an edge. If you want to carry another edge and just kind of keep that group fresh, if you're trying to, if a guy raises his hand, hold on, there's the guy out of Louisiana Monroe, Ty Shelby. Maybe that's a name to, he's an edge, defensive end, outside linebacker, hybrid. Otherwise, I would probably look defensive back. I think defensive back might be the one spot just because we know how much Staley loves them in special teams. If there's
so many of them. And the next question, we'll just get into it because do you think Leonard or Jasir makes the roster?
That's what I mean.
Are they more developmental prospects for the future?
Yeah, that's why I was saying, I could see an undrafted player, making it ahead of them because they're 6th and 7th, they're later round picks. So if Sebastian out of BC ends up making it as an undrafted free agent ahead of Leonard, who goes to the practice squad, that's not a big deal, whether or not Leonard or Jasir Taylor get claimed. So that's probably where I think there's a shot. You got Raheem Lane out of Indiana, who was a big special teams player for them. He's a safety corner hybrid, played both positions for Indiana. So that's a possibility. That's probably where I would look. I think that's maybe the most likely. But I think you're right. I think this year's going to be tough.
Staley and Telesco said this offseason they want a deep and complete team. And I think that they made strides towards that, which is going to make it a little bit more difficult. You had a lot of draft picks too. I know you traded some picks, but guys like Leonard and Jasir, you're right, Money. Like a 6th and 7th round pick, you could put in that same bucket as a UDFA.
Yeah, because you got a 15-man practice squad, that's still carried over. So you got the extra spots. And, if you're putting them there, you feel good about them not getting claimed. And it's not like, again, it's a sixth and a set. They're developmental players. Yeah. So, and I think that goes for the running backs too. I think if you feel like Letty, who's a bigger back, if you want a little bit more thump, if you think he's a better fit than Roundtree, and you're like, well, if we put Roundtree on the practice squad, I don't think anyone's going to claim him. So let's keep him there and we can rotate these guys back and forth. So yeah, that's a possibility too.
I also think we look too much into this final 53 week one, because, even if a undrafted free agent makes it, and is he going to be active for week one? Do you even know what to expect? So like, I almost feel like a 15-man practice squad, that's what we're talking about here. If we can keep some of these guys who were late round picks and undrafted free agents, develop them rather throughout the season, and then get them out there. I don't know if a team who is striving to win a Super Bowl wants an undrafted free agent out there week one on the active roster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unless they really, really show up. And look, like the thing with that, by the way, the only reason to do that is because they're going to get claimed. And you don't want to lose him. And that's
good point.
Like they knew Eckler was going to get claimed if they did not put him on the roster. They knew Easton Stick was going to get claimed if they did not put him on the roster. So that's kind of the way that works. Is a lot of it's defense. It's not offense. You're not putting them out there because you think they can make a huge difference on game day. You're putting them out there because you want to keep developing them, and you don't want to lose them to another team that's willing to put them on an active roster, because they're not in that Super Bowl window per se, and they're still developing their roster. So they're more willing to take on someone like that and put them on their 53.
Yeah. Excellent point. Stephen Gillard, should the Chargers add another alternate uniform and match powder blue top with powder blue pants money?
No, I don't think so. That would look that's too Smurfy. I think the powder blue as a jersey is great. I think the navies, I'm not even crazy about the all navies. I'm not a big fan of the one color top and pant. I don't know what it is. Like everybody talks about the Ravens all blacks is one of the better uniforms in the NFL. Totally disagree. Just doesn't work for me. I need a good pant top combo. That's just how I'm wired. 49ers red and gold, Chargers powder blue and gold, Raiders black, silver pant, Chiefs red top, white pant. Like there's something about the combos that work. Gold or green top, gold pant Packers, that's, to me, that's sort of where it's at, as opposed to the uniform, pardon the pun, the uniform.
Now that the NFL has allowed teams to have different colored helmets, wouldn't you like to see that Navy Chargers helmet back for a game or two at some point over the next few years?
I like, I guess this is where, I don't know if I'm just too old or whatever. Like, I love the gold helmet, man, with the Chargers and the black script, and the real thin font.
I wouldn't mind seeing that one either.
That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, I mean, look, the uniforms are great. That we love it here. We talk about them a lot. So anytime you want to bring up uniform talk, by all means. You want the all powder blues, bring it up. Not my cup of tea, but hey, love talking about it. That's for sure.
A Fergie, do you think Staley will rein in his go for it approach after his first season as head coach in the NFL, or was he just doing that out of necessity?
I don't think he would ever admit it, but I think he believed a lot more in his offense than his defense last year, and I think the numbers certainly, were able to bear that out. So I think when you're talking about, okay, how am I feeling about my defense that's, not performing on third down, that's lackluster against the run, versus an offense that is shredding defenses regularly, I do think a lot of that goes into it. It's not just Staley's gut. That's not how he operates. It's not, hey, you know what? I feel like I'm going to go for it here. No, he's looking at everything in context. And what do I have at my disposal on each side of the ball? What do they have at their disposal? Do I feel better about my offense versus their defense in this particular situation than I would putting my defense back out there? Is the defense tired? Is it like, you know what I mean? There's so much. Is it thin? Is there not enough depth in that particular game? So the one thing I think Staley has done that has really opened, and you're going to see more of it. I think what he's done that others weren't willing to do is recognize that the risk isn't as great as people paint it out to be, that it's a calculated risk. And if the calculation that you have at your disposal bears out that you have a better chance of success than failure, then do it. Why give the ball up? I get it. And so I think that's still, look, and I think the team loves it. The team loves it. Like they like having that swagger. Hey man, this is what we do. Hey, defense, what are you, third down? Great. Congratulations. Stop us again. Because you're not gonna. Like, I think there is something to that, to having that attitude and that disposition when you step on the field, knowing that if you don't get it on third down, you're not hanging your head and walking off the field. You're running back to the huddle and being like, whatever, we'll get it here. And I think that goes a long way.
There's a balance to it. If the defense is markedly improved, it's not going to be the same ratio. Like, if you have confidence in that secondary and the pass rush and that defense is clamping offenses down, I think Staley will be more than happy to punt the ball. And also the punting has to be better.
I was just going to say that. Perfect. Yeah. Exactly, Chris. The punting.
If the punting's better and the defense is better, yeah, it's going to change. And it's not going to change the way I think Staley feels about Herbert and the offense. But I think there's going to be certain situations where it makes more sense to pin an offense back and let Mac and Bosa get after quarterbacks as opposed to go for it in – at your own 30 or your own 40. I mean, it's going to be game to game and it's going to be different situations, but I agree with you, Money. I think that the more confidence that Staley and that defensive staff has in the players, the less that they're going to go for on fourth down.
And it goes back, Chris, when we were talking about drafting a punter, and by the way, and talking to some people around the Chargers, they're super impressed with JK, super impressed. They're like, we got a guy. So they feel really good about him. And it goes back to something I brought up, and, and whatever, call it dropping a name, but he's a punter. When I was on with Pat McAfee and this came up and we were talking about Ariza before the draft when I was out at the combine and I ended up doing a show, it came up and he made the great point. And it's so obvious. And I just never thought of it before. And I was like, what do you think, dude? For the brand, you're going to get your punter drafted in the second round. And he just said, the only reason to draft the punter is when you have an elite defense, because that's it. He goes, otherwise it's a waste. It's a complete waste. What good does it do when I put a coffin corner at the 3 and on first and 10, they're already at the 22 because your defense sucks. He's like, so that goes to the point that you were making, right? That if you feel good about your special teams, in particular, your punting game and punt cover, and you have an elite defense, then you're going to punt more because that works for you. You have a good punter that's going to pin a team deep. And now you've got the personnel to pin their ears back because they're deep and get after it and flip the field or create a turnover. So it's going to change because the team is so different.
Yeah. And look, you can do both. You can punt and have confidence in your defense, and you can also go for it in situations where it's 50-50 or maybe less and say, listen, man, I got Justin Herbert, so I'm good. I'm good to go for it. And as you mentioned, Money, the guys love it. They get behind it, and I think all three phases get behind it. So it's not something where like the defense is wondering why the offense is on the field and vice versa. I mean, I think that this is like a team decision. Like, this is our identity. This is how we're going to play ball. And
remember, they weren't entirely, confident in their kicking game either until Dustin got here. Yeah. So when they were dealing with Vizcaino, as a rookie and in his first shot, and he missed a couple extra points and field goals, it's like, okay, well, I don't really feel good about a 52-yarder here. I don't feel good about a 48-yarder. So let's just go for it. We feel better about that being a successful play and converting on 4th and 3 than we do giving Tristan a shot from 47. So it all comes into play.
Next one from Benjamin. Who's under more pressure this season, Herbert or Staley? I'll answer this first by saying a quarterback and a head coach in the NFL are both under immense amounts of pressure.
Always.
And I think both of these guys don't really care about the pressure. Like, they know what's at stake. They know who else is in the division in terms of coaches. They know who's in the division in terms of other quarterbacks. And they know they have a good team. They know they got to get to the playoffs. So who's under more pressure? I think Herbert wants to get to the playoffs for the first time in his career. Staley wants to improve on that 9-8 mark, and you leave it at that.
I mean, I would just for me, I'd say Staley, just because of so much of it is pressure that's applied externally, and there are so many, and it's fair or not. Look,
younger coach versus franchise quarterback.
And it's also just a roster that national media believes in. There's a lot of people picking the Chargers to win the division. There's a lot of people picking the Chargers to make the Super Bowl. If you want to look at Vegas and just the numbers, they're one of the favorites. And if you believe you have the players that are, unfortunately for coaches, if the players don't execute, it's not on the player. It's typically on the coach. So to me, that's where, I guess you could craft that. Hey, Staley could be under some pressure after missing the postseason last year, losing 3 of his last, however, I don't remember what it came down to. The loss to the Texans and the Raiders, 2 of their last 3, losing those. And then coming into this season with a roster that a lot of people think is Super Bowl caliber and not making the postseason or not making a run in the postseason, then you're going to have external pressure. I don't think that pressure will be internal. I think everybody inside the building believes this is someone we hope is their head coach for the next 20 years. Even though that doesn't really happen in the NFL, that's the hope and that's the belief. And let's not forget, Sean McVay's first season with the Rams, they went from a bad record to, I think they were 9-7 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like they made that first step and then the jump came. So I think, if you're looking at a similar trajectory, young coach, sort of new philosophies that are work at play, I think inside they believe that's the guy they found, someone very similar to McVay. That's, or Kyle Shanahan, that's young and getting their first crack at this. And they're darn excited about having been able to get him a year early than maybe being a year too late, and being able to work through that in that first year. And then here it comes.
Saw a tweet last week. Someone talked about Mike Tomlin being on the hot seat, and this is a guy who's never had a losing season in the NFL. So like that's thing ever. It goes to what you said about just the external pressure at the head coaching position.
Yeah,
you can never be happy. This guy's he's a made man. Right? He should never be fired ever. And people are talking about him being on the hot seat.
It's and plus, what are you going to replace him with? That's a funny thing. It's like, okay, so who are you going to go get? What do you think? What are you doing here? So, but I think it's a fair question. When with great expectations, comes great pressure. And that's why they always say, undersell, overperform. Well, unfortunately, the Chargers aren't overselling it, but the national media is, and that's where the pressure comes in.
Ask your connections. When is the next All In? I don't have the exact date, but don't you worry.
It'll be there. I mean, it's so good. And by the way, shout out to our man Jason, who got named by Athletic for the 40 under 40 on their 40 under 40 list for the NFL. 40 individuals under the age of 40 that are making noise, and totally deserved what he's been able to do to build that department, and what our media department does at the Chargers is just incredible. It's second to none. It's the best in the NFL and probably the best in American sports. It's that good what Jason and Megan and that whole crew have been able to build through their social media and through their digital. And All In is certainly a product of that. So there's no way. And plus, it's got a sponsor, so of course it's coming back.
Oh yeah, big congrats to Jason on that, man. It's well deserved.
Absolutely.
A couple more here from Antonio. What kind of offense should we expect in 2022? Similar or very different from last year? I would say similar. With wrinkles, right? Similar with some wrinkles.
Yeah, I think similar. To me, it better be similar. That's the benefit. Is that it's finally Justin Herbert in the second year of an offense that he's comfortable with. That's
the lead there. That's exciting, right? To have Justin actually in a system for 2 years straight, for as smart as he is, to maybe take what he learned last year and up it a bit.
Yeah. I mean, look, guess what? For 13 years, the Saints offense was similar. It was Sean Payton and it was Joe Lombardi, and they ran the same stuff and people couldn't stop it. Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. This is what we're running on. What do you know? At the end of the year, they're running for 4.5, 5 yards per clip, dominating time of possession. It's like, yeah, when you figure it out, especially when you got a quarterback that can run it, It's going to look the same. Things look different in New England. Now, that's the one wrinkle. Yes, seemed like Bill Belichick would always zag when everyone else was zigging or zig when everyone else was zagging. I think about the year that the Chargers made the playoffs on that 12-4 year, and all of a sudden you got two fullbacks and they're freaking running down your throat, just a ton of screen passes to James White with a big old fullback in front of them. And it was teams weren't built to stop it. They were too small. So that's the one exception. Is Belichick would always seem to do that. But otherwise, guys do what they do, especially if it's successful.
Final one, flock with me. 1, 2, 3. From New Jersey, looking to come out for that Monday night game against the Broncos. As a longtime Chargers fan, any recommendations of things to do when I come out for the game or places to check out in the area? Thanks and love the podcast, guys. Flock with me, 1, 2, 3, money. That's an October game, so think about that.
Yeah. It's so hard because I don't know what people are into, right? I would say, one of the great things about LA is obviously entertainment. So we have, and I think the one thing that gets overlooked is they think about Hollywood, but they forget about music. And this is where all the music labels are. And this is where some of the most historic music venues are, the Troubadour, the Whiskey, the Roxy, the Greek, the Hollywood Bowl. So be sure to check the concert calendar. See if there's someone you're into, play in one of those iconic venues. In particular, like to me, the big ones are like, for me, the big three. Actually, no, there's a lot more than that. But like, if you can catch a show at the Troubadour for a small club, I think it's the best sound of any club I've ever been in. If you want atmosphere, the Greek or the Hollywood Bowl, if there's somebody there, outdoor venues that are just glorious, these giant outdoor venues in the middle of LA that are special. There's a couple other venues, John Hanson Ford, that's fantastic. But I would do that. Number 1, 2. Obviously there's iconic food, but I just don't know, what are you into? To me, you got to get a sandwich at Philippe's. You just got to get that French dip. They invented it. It's a super cool place right down the street from Dodger Stadium. And hey, if the Dodgers are playing, get the freaking Dodger game. Talk about an iconic mecca of a venue.
NLDS or
exactly.
I don't know how it lines up, but
get in there, get to Dodger Stadium. So there's a couple. And look, I also think I wouldn't hesitate to get down to Orange County, and just kind of see how pretty it is down where we live, Chris, and check out, Seal Beach and Huntington Beach and Newport Beach and Corona Del Mar and Laguna Beach. Don't be afraid to just kind of walk the streets right there close to the coast and take in. Especially
October is beautiful at the beach, man.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. 1,000 steps, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, check that out.
If you're a real football head, maybe Lincoln Riley's in town. Maybe you go to the Coliseum on a Saturday.
There you go. Coliseum or Rose Bowl. Yeah. If UCLA, you get to go to the Rose Bowl. If it's USC, great call. If it's USC, you get to go to the Coliseum. 2 iconic football venues.
There you go.
Certainly works.
June 30th, money, and the appetite for Chargers football is alive, man. An hour of questions.
Love it. No doubt. Certainly appreciate everybody and all the questions. Makes it easy for us when we're just kind of waiting until that third week of July to really get going again. Everybody's on their break right now. You're going to Hawaii. I just got back. Players are taking vacations. Justin Herbert's getting slimed by the people over at Nickelodeon. So
that was fun to see.
It was great.
That was fun to see because he got slimed earlier in the year winning that award, and he's become a Nickelodeon fan favorite. No,
we love it, man. Love it. That's the generation you want. Get the kid. I remember being a little kid and a real little kid. He was kind of working his way toward the tail end when I remember Walter Payton growing up, just becoming my favorite player, and how excited I was about Walter Payton and Jim McMahon. And, I cut my hair and got it spiky and used to wear a headband that said Roselle on it, things like that when I was a kid. So, that's,
do you have a picture of that?
I think I do somewhere because, it's not digital. So it's like my parents have, but yeah, I know NFL Network somehow, this guy, Mark Brady, who was awesome, somehow figured out how to track down my mom and reached out to her and said, hey, we need to get some photos of Matt as a kid and some Bears gear, if you don't mind. And so, there's pictures of me as a little kid with that. I don't know if people remember, there used to be this little thing called Hutch, and you could buy the jersey, pants, and helmet that was just plastic. Like you couldn't play football in it, but you could dress up in it. So I had the little Hutch stuff. And that's what Herbert's afforded the Chargers, is to have that individual that appeals to that age group. And it's so cool to be that young. And it's it truly is my favorite thing about going to SoFi, is when I see the little kids and their Derwin James and their Joey Bosa, in their, what I'm sure is going to be Khalil Macks and JC Jacksons and Austin Eckler jerseys. It's just so much fun to see those tiny little kids in those jerseys, just taking it all in, and how big it must seem to them, and that's how awesome. Crazy it must seem to them, and overwhelming. So yeah, totally.
Next generation. I think Justin's jersey is in the top 10 of overall jersey sales too at this point too.
I saw that. Yeah, I think they just released last month, and it was I think it was number 7 or number 8 it came in. So yeah,
7 or 8.
We'll take it.
Take it. All right, guys, it's gonna do it for us. I'll be coming to you from Hawaii next week.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can. Maybe I'll rock a tank top and some.
Yeah, of course you can. It's gonna be 80 degrees out. Why not?
Do it at 5:30 a.m.
Knock it out. Birds chirping. You'll be right there on the Kaanapali Beach, in the background at the pool. Get yourself a nice Kona coffee, and you'll be all good.
That's it. Give me some recommendations, bro.
Oh yeah, they're coming.
That's going to do it for us, guys. This has been Chargers Weekly. We'll see you next Thursday.